goes for goal and finishes off the PSG victory.
Nuno Mendes est lancé, Nuno Mendes va vite, Nuno Mendes passe devant Quadrado, le tir, oh il est beau celui-là, le but de Nuno Mendes.
You know the football, it is what it is.
Le premier but de Ronald Colomboigny avec le Paris Saint-Germain, ah quelle joie.
Hello and welcome to PSG Review, the show getting ready for the apex of the autumn term. It starts to be now or never, or rather now or not before the next season as far as Champions League goes, as the final match of the Ligue 1 has been played before the moment of truth in Dortmund. My name is Mikko, really great to have you listening to PSG Review. We have a great show for you today as it's been a busy week in Paris. We talk a little bit about the news that PSG has a new minority shareholder, Arctos Partners. Who are they and what that might mean in general, but especially in terms of the stadium question. Is this a key to Parc des Princes, or is it at least an attempt to unlock the negotiations? A few words about our current goalkeeper situations. We talk a little bit about our injured players and risks of rushing players back from recovery too soon, and of course we discuss the match against Nantes. You can find and follow me online at PSG Review Pod on Twitter, at PSG Review on Instagram and TikTok. These episodes are now also available as audio only on YouTube, and I'm also in Blue Sky, so in case you are there, feel free to look me up and say hello. It was always going to be quite an interesting thing to see how Luis Enrique would line up PSG at Parc des Princes a few days before the trip to Dortmund. I say few days, it's 4 days between these two matches, and there was also 6 days since the previous match. So all things considered, there is some recovery times in both directions, and therefore, rather than rotating the squad to offer some rest, he was technically in a position to set the squad up in a way that would best prepare it for the Champions League night where Ousmane Dembele will be suspended. Gianluigi Donnarumma was suspended for this match against Nantes and has still another one to sit out in Ligue 1, but in Champions League he can and most probably will play. Arnaud Tenas is a reasonably good goalkeeper. I'm moderately excited about him, and I trust that he can become even better than he now is. He has many attributes for that, even if he isn't as tall as many other keepers are, but we all know that can be compensated to an extent at least. He was really great against Le Havre, as we talked about it in the last episode, and he wasn't bad against Nantes either. But with these two matches, he has now played the grand total of 2 professional matches as a football player, so it seems a bit unlikely that he would start over Donnarumma, who I hope has had some time to gather himself in the meantime. It's slightly different thing for goalkeepers, but before his suspension, Donnarumma had of course played every minute of every match this season. I guess it would be a different thing if Navas was available and ready to go. That could change things more, but he isn't available. My friend told me he had been listening to RMC where they had suggested that the injury Navas is suffering from is more diplomatic than actual and that he might not play for us anymore. This is a bit of a second-hand hearsay, so make of that what you will. So I don't know to what extent that is true, but as things stand, I'd be very surprised if Donnarumma wasn't playing this midweek. But in this match against Nantes, he was suspended and Arnaud Tenas was between the sticks. Backline with Hakimi, Marquinhos, who was back, and we talk a little bit more about these injuries in a bit. With him there was Danilo and then Lucas Hernandez on the side. Midfield with Ugarte, Vitinha and Lee, and the front three was Barcola, Soler and Mbappe. I was surprised to see Soler there because I assumed that Colomboigny and Ramos could be warming up for the Champions League match. Colomboigny has been playing a little on the Dembele spot before, and he was very exciting there when he was there. I really enjoyed it, but this isn't what we had to start with in this match. And the first half against Nantes, reasonably good football, quite entertaining, not massively clinical finishing, the scoring of the actual goals. Those are the things that count, but I was saying this on Twitter that I do notice is that this season, despite the departures of some incredibly technical players, some of the most technical in the world like Neymar and Verratti, it feels like the overall level of technical ability has increased. Obviously not because they have left But despite it, everyone on the pitch is able to move the ball quite swiftly. The touches are perfectly soft and they start to find each other's thoughts and movements as they go. So it's nice to watch that type of football. It's very enjoyable, but of course, we could have few more goals for those troubles as well. Of course, Nantes stayed compact and credit to them too. They did what they could, and with Alban Lafont on goal, I've never felt like victory is given. I remember when Alban Lafont was a teenager, 17 years old or something like that, and he played for Toulouse and made it virtually impossible for PSG to score against him. He had even few of those types of nights. If you remember when Camavinga came to be known by having that magical night against PSG, I don't know, I think he was 16 or something like that, playing for Rennes at the time, and he just had amazing match against us, and it made sure that match that certainly I would never forget his name now. I think that the world of football will remember his name for other things too, but for me that was the moment. And Lafont had similar matches at similarly young age. He's a great goalkeeper, so much potential there, but somehow his career hasn't quite taken the upwards turn like I thought it should, and quite frankly hope it would have. Towards the end of the first half, Bradley Barcola had a great run, a quick give and go with Vitinha, and he made it 1-0 for Paris before the half-time. The second half from Paris wasn't as good. Have to be honest about it. There were far more errors there all around, and Nantes was of course also forced to chase the results, so they were more up for it. They did get their equalizer from a corner kick, and after that it was back and forth. Anything could have happened, and Nantes could have easily scored another, but of course so could have PSG. And in the end, from Lee Kang-in free kick after some commotion in front of Lafont, who saved it once initially, Randall Colomwani, who had come to play on the second half, scored against his former team to make it 2-1 on the 83rd minute, and almost immediately there was another situation where substitute Marco Asensio, who also had come in to the pitch from the bench, had a goal pretty much open, but he skied the ball over the bar into the stand, and instead of more relaxed last 10 minutes with 5 minutes of additional time included, we had a real contest until the last minute, but 3 points stayed at Parc des Princes. As it turns out, we had both Marquinhos and Warren Zaire-Emery playing part of this match against Nantes. Neither of them played the full match, but both played well for the minutes they did, and I had been quite hopeful about Marquinhos being back in action quite soon, but the news came out of the blue that even Warren Zaire-Emery has more or less completed his recovery in a record time and even could be available for this match or Dortmund. So this was said around midweek, and two thoughts came to my mind immediately. Of course, that's a great news. It's very exciting, and especially since Fabian Ruiz isn't available, it means all the more for the squad against Dortmund in specific. But, and this is such a big but that even Sir Mix-a-Lot would approve, is there a risk involved here? I'm not a doctor, and even if I was, I wouldn't have examined the young man myself, but is there any risk? I mean, there's always a risk, but let's say, is there any heightened risk that there could be a relapse? I know the players want to get back on the grass as soon as possible, but that doesn't always mean it's wise. Zaire-Emery is having a huge season with absolutely massive expectations on him, and he knows that. In the next, let's say, 7 months, he could be a European champion and an Olympic gold medalist. And I'm not saying that he will be. Neither one of those things are easy to win. And of course, those are just national team targets. And it's not guaranteed that he will be in a national team, but it is possible. And then we have our own hopes and dreams with Paris. But this is a significant moment in his career, and I want to see him back. But to be honest with you, not a minute before his body is absolutely ready. Like I said, really ready. Because both Presnel Kimpembe and Nuno Mendes were rushing back to the World Cup just over a year ago, and that was costly because we haven't really seen them play much since. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say that if any of these things are connected in such a straightforward manner, but I would be a bit conservative with these things because gaining 1 or 2 matches now can lose you half a season or even more down the line, and that won't be good for anybody. So if he is 100% like they say that, he was playing, so he must be very close to that, if not fully fully fit. I'm genuinely very happy he was playing very well, but let's not take any risk that we have to regret down the line. I mean, after all, he wasn't supposed to play football for the rest of the year, and according to some, even that was leaning towards optimism as a prediction, but now he's apparently ready to go, so we take it as such. And perhaps it is like that. Perhaps that's how it has gone. It has just gone super incredibly fast. Maybe that is just the way that things turned out for him. And I'm very happy if that is the case. And I'm happy to have him. And I hope that we don't have to face any consequences of rushing players back to fitness later on. Some significant financial news came also this week, and I have been trying to wrap my head around this. I'm not a very business-oriented person, perhaps to my own detriment, but after a long period of speculation, PSG has now announced that it's selling a minority share of the club to US-based company Arctos Partners, which, despite its name or polar bear logo, doesn't come from any far north, but it's based in Texas with offices in New York, and this company specializes on minority shares in various clubs in various sports. On their website, they have a Nelson Mandela quote, which I always find a little suspicious because usually it's the worst people who have to quote the best people to be confused to be the same thing. But this, of course, is now just speculation. I'm not being entirely serious, and I also hope that I'm wrong about it. But let's just say that unconnected to any of this, I have seen something like that happen before. And also, of course, there are very few people or corporations with this amounts of money that are just nice, cool people, you know. Business is business, as it is with QSI, of course, as well. In the United States, Arctos have their fingers at least in the pies of Golden State Warriors, Utah Jazz, Dodgers, Astros, New Jersey Devils, Pittsburgh Penguins, and many, many others, including Formula One globally. And on this side of the Atlantic, they're connected to Liverpool. These types of minority shares, as far as I understand, that we are talking about roughly 12% or something like that. They won't create a conflict of interest should we be playing in the same competition with, say, Liverpool, for instance, in Champions League, or if things don't work out, even in the Europa League. And you have to bear with me here because we need to rely a little bit on the press releases and official information that's been given to us, you know, to present things in the most positive lights. But this is what the press release says, and I quote, "The investment from Arctos will go towards growing PSG's operations and also supporting the club's strategic real estate initiatives, including relating to its stadium and the future development phases of PSG's world-leading training center at Poissy in suburban Paris." There's a lot more there, of course, but it is striking to me that the stadium project is mentioned. To what extent that is the key here? Well, it's difficult to say, but we know that PSG have the new training center. It's not yet fully finished, but the plans, and I imagine the cash for that is cleared, so PSG doesn't need new partners for that purpose, but the impasse that the club has reached with the city of Paris about Parc des Princes, which the club would want to buy, doesn't own it as it is. But there's no green light from the appropriate municipal authorities, so nothing can be happening until this is solved. PSG has an ambitious plan for renovating and also adding capacity to Parc des Princes, but this stadium is also a landmark on its own, and it has its own role in the sporting folklore of Paris and France in more general, so it's a contentious issue. And one thing that is fairly relatively sure I could say is that PSG is probably not wanting to invest of millions upon millions into new renovations to make it a state-of-the-art world-class thing if they are just renting it out. If they are not, even on a long-term lease, they would want to own for that to happen. So this is the question now, that does this new partnership with Arctos have something to do with that? Is the seen as a way forward? I don't know. And I don't know how well you know Paris as a city, and I don't claim to be expert myself, but when it comes to these very old European cities, it's not very easy to find a free stadium-sized plot of land in a sensible area, which is not too difficult to get to with public transportation. I mean, these cities are very old, they're very full, they're very crowded oftentimes in large parts. People don't by and large drive to the matches. There aren't always these huge parking facilities nearby, so the location is key, and Parc des Princes has a good location. Anything too much further starts stretching it out a little bit. Journalist Ben Jacobs on Twitter also noted that Arctos could focus on the women's team a little bit more, and that would really be needed because the investment there has been low and interest in it seemingly even lower. We have to follow these leads and see what happens, but it seems noteworthy, at least for now, that this has been mentioned. PSG women are playing tonight against Le Havre and later on Thursday at Parc des Princes, a very important match in the Champions League group stage against AS Roma. Currently with 0 points from 2 matches, it's really an uphill battle to get through, but hopefully the tide will turn this week. And of course there is still many matches to, not that many. I mean, essentially there's 4 matches to turn things around, and hopefully the team is going to be able to do that. For the men's team, Wednesday night is the big one. That is when the true level of this project as it is right now is measured. And I think that even more than football-wise, because we know that the team can play football, this is also test of mentality. And it is one of those matches that you have to go there and you have to go and win. And if you can't win these matches, then it's a bit futile to trying to compete in Europe anyway too much, because you need to have that ability to win important big matches. That is what European football is all about. That is what these continental competitions are all about. I mean, we can win the match and win the group. We can even play in Europa League. So there's no excuses. We all need to be behind both of these teams, women and men, this week, which is the most significant week of the autumn, to be quite clear. Thank you so much for your time having shared this moment with me. My name is Mikko. This is PSG Review, and more next time when we know the verdict. It's very exciting. It's a bit unnerving also, but this is the deal you are given. Find and follow me online on the socials at PSG Review Pod on Twitter and at PSG Review on TikTok and Instagram. And please, if you don't mind, rate and review this show on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you listen to this from. Take care, and until the next time, peace.